What say you when someone, let's say someone is kind of having significant difficulty with their experience of stress or their
Sure.
experiencing of anxiety. We're going to move into again kind of to more of the techie side of HRV biofeedback and training here in just a second. But what's the lowest hanging fruit for you? So if somebody's experiencing stress, anxiety in the moment for you, what do you tell them?
Sure. So we look at different pillars of health and performance. I'll ask about sleep. I'll ask about
Hmm.
exercise. I'll ask about their close relationships. I do believe, and I've seen it with HRV, interpersonal connection, deep, meaningful interpersonal connection absolutely will impact autonomic flexibility.
Mm,
It's how we're wired, I believe,
hmm.
to
Right,
survive and thrive.
right.
So we begin to look at these different pillars, and also incorporating techniques to help manage the stress response. HRV biofeedback being one that we know is scientific and effective. Also, the exercise piece. Um, but essentially, I'm asking kind of it's a needs assessment. Where are you at in terms of having pillars to manage your stress response? The one thing we know in life is we will have stress. There is no avoiding it. Yes. So now we have to train for it. And it's so funny, you take a tennis player preparing for the US Open and they do 1,000 serves before they go to the Open. Why? So they don't have to think about it. The muscle is trained, it has the memory. We can train the heart in the
Hmm.
very same way we would train our muscles for a tennis serve to operate optimally during performance moments and to have those big, beautiful oscillations, being able to recover faster even when stress happens. Those are some of the areas that I start with.
Right. So you train it as a reflex. So when the moment comes, you don't even have to think about it. You
That's
just
right.
engage and it just happens. And I think that, that goes back to kind of these basic foundations of physiological conditioning and how the more and more we do something for better or for worse, that we condition these responses, which again, great and beautiful thing. It's a part of our human evolution.
And And then there's the piece that we're moving towards, which is not just using the HRV biofeedback as two bookends at the start and the end of the day to
Hmm.
create that automated response or to sleep better, but actually using the resonance breathing during moments in the day where HRV drops
Yes.
and then being able to recover faster. And we need more research, but I've already heard it from, uh, you know, leaders, cognitive leaders,
Hmm.
that it optimizes cognitive flexibility.
Right.
So that's the next piece is using the HRV actually during the day, during
Hmm.
stress moments, or even knowing in advance this is going to be stressful for me and
Yeah.
mapping out times to breathe during the day. So it's a form of prevention as opposed to intervention.
Indeed, that's the next wave for sure. The next wave is really collecting the needed research for looking at continuous HRV, both monitoring
Monitoring.
and then also to training. Which again, obviously, will be a little bit more cryptic, but I'll also show my cards because we've already shown our cards a little bit. Is that's what we're looking at Hanu Health. I mean, that's our hope and our goal is to see whether or not this is a viable option for helping people to condition a better reflex for when they're experiencing stress, when they're experiencing anxiety throughout the day. Because a lot of times you're right, we tend to bookend it. We'll measure and train HRV, first thing in the morning, and then we'll measure and train it at the end of the day. And that can be great. I mean, it can be a great primer for the rest of the day. It can also be a great primer for sleep. And it's an excellent way to condition the nervous system. But would we benefit it from it even more so throughout the day? Now, as a kind of continuous level of monitor and training. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's such a needed piece.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next iteration beyond that is using this to optimize performance. We know it impacts being able to be vulnerable with people, so
Right.
connecting deeply or speaking in front of a large audience, and using this kind of data to optimize your inner self
Yes.
for performance moments. So not just as an intervention for stress, but a way to optimize performance across specific domains.
Indeed. Leah, there's so many myths and misunderstandings as to what HRV is. I mean, this is something that is, all over the news. It's built into every single wearable. Like most people that are in the health and wellness space probably have heard or have somewhat of an understanding what HRV. I would say as it continues to be the bulk majority of people still don't know what HRV is. But I think, again, a lot of it comes down to there being so many myths and misunderstandings. How do you simplify and share with your clientele what heart rate variability is and what its usefulness is?
So I say there's two definitions. There's the scientific definition, which looks at peak beats of the heartbeat and the time in between. Mm-hmm. And we want there to be great variability in between those beats. The second one is the clinical that I mentioned earlier, which is just easier for people to grasp, to see the peak to trough. When you inhale, your baseline heart rate is 50, you inhale to 70, it goes back to 50, and being able to see that. From an index measure, I say to people that this is a measure of your body's flexibility to manage stress. The stronger it is, the more you can precisely navigate under pressure. So you can be a Ferrari instead of, instead of a Volvo station wagon, which is dependable and reliable, and there's nothing wrong with it. But we want precision in these stress moments, so the reaction is a little tighter, or meaning less reactive, unless you need to be, and that you can recover faster. There is oftentimes a fear that they won't be able to amp up. This is not necessarily a calming mechanism, and I'm very clear about this. This hones the reflexes, so they're more efficient. If they need to amp up, they can amp up, but they can let go and reset faster and more efficiently. The other piece that I've been talking with clients about is the cognitive piece, that now we're also looking at HRV as an index of blood flow to the brain. So higher HRV, more blood flow to the brain, fuel for cognitive dexterity, for processing, for emotional regulation, for inhibition. And the inhibitory responses are so pivotal to being able to be objective decision makers under pressure.
So, basically what we're talking about is HRV being the best non-invasive proxy that we have for nervous system functioning, and our ability to modulate HRV is also indicative of our ability to adapt to stress. Thanks for listening to the Hanu Health Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. This podcast would not happen without listeners and supporters like you, and the best way to support us and the show is to head on over to iTunes and provide us with a 5-star review. This helps us reach others and spread the good word of breathing and stress resiliency. If we read your 5-star review on air, please reach out to podcast@hanuhealth.com with your name and mailing address, and we will send you some sweet Hanu gear. Until next time, breathe better and stress less.